Hello everyone, Jeff and Jay here with another edition of Jay's Big Adventure. Jay is off answering one of those age-old questions about bears and woods, but I'm sure he'll be along shortly. Today we are in Solitude, which is just outside of Salt Lake City, and it is one of the smaller ski resorts. But our purpose today is to review this 2016 BMW R1200 R. This bike is actually pretty well equipped. It came with the factory Akrapovic muffler, which is great. It has BMW's keyless ride, so all you do is press the button if you've got the key on you and it fires up. Tremendous amount of information on this screen. I'm hoping this shows up in the sun, otherwise I may have to refilm it. But you've got a tach across the top, of course, speedometer, gear indicator. This is tire pressure monitor, what mode you are in, and you can do clock and temperature and all that stuff. And it is controlled with the same Wonder Wheel that I have on my K1600. This bike. But one of the best parts about this bike is it has BMW's Shift Assist Pro. Now, Shift Assist has been around for a while. You don't need to use the clutch. You roll off the gas, lift the shift lever, and it cuts the ignition to make a really, really smooth, seamless shift going up through the gears. The Shift Assist Pro also means it will assist you going down through the gears. So when you go to downshift, you roll off the throttle, push the lever down, and it blips the gas to rev match to keep you from locking a tire up on the downshift. It's really slick. I will show you what that's like during the ride. But so for a 2016, this has got virtually every option that you can put on the bike. Let's see what this thing is like. I mean, one of the things that I noticed right off the bat is, God, this thing is light. Taking it down off the center stand is just no worries. But it's just so easy to maneuver. The throttle response is great. It's just easy to ride, and that's a big part of getting comfortable on a bike. It's also a big part of going fast, because if you really want to go ripping, you want something that does exactly what you expect it to, no more, no less. I'm going to make sure all my zippers are up. I don't want to be losing stuff on the road. Okay, let's give this thing a rip. Yeah, it's got the torques. Let's try this quick shifter here. Ready and go. It's just seamless. Wow. And it's downshifts that are really fun. And man, because this is a twin, it has a ton of engine braking. Big cylinders and lightweight means it really slows down when you let off the gas. We've got a rear tire pressure warning, but that is just a sensor. We're already aware of that. Man, I want to go down a gear. And you don't get to the slipper clutch because it's rev matching already. With most quick shift programs, whether it's this one, it really does work better at higher RPMs. Also works better on smaller CC bikes because the transmission parts don't weigh as much. This isn't bad at all. Now, I'm helping this shift assist by rolling off the gas. You don't have to. If I just want to leave the throttle open, it works just great. But if you roll off a little bit, it really helps smooth that out. The nice thing I like about this particular bike and this exhaust is that it's not obnoxious. It's got some tone to it when you wind on it. But if you're just riding, it's not obnoxious. I mean, God, there are guys in the club that have S1000 RRs that'll make your ears bleed. Oh man. I tell you, this thing is so well sorted. But it just, if you twist the throttle more, it just goes faster. There doesn't seem to be much of a coming up in the cam like you expect with some smaller displacement bikes where, you know, two-strokes in particular. This thing, it's just, the power is so linear, and especially if you're on a road that you don't know, having that linear power like an electric motor is really nice. And this is one of the things about the Zeros, is that the power delivery is the definition of linear. Man, does this thing scoot. So I'm gonna have to sit down and do a little napkin math, but I think this has a better power to weight ratio than my bike does. I'm pretty sure it has a better torque to weight ratio. But when you get off the gas, it just shuts up. It's really nice. Ooh, who that? Let's go find out. Had a big old bug splat there. I think that's a Honda ST, could be a 1300. Well, wow. It doesn't have the triangular exhausts like an ST 1300. Whatever it is, it sure is pretty. It's that Honda red that I love. This is the backside of Guardsman's Pass, and it goes from Solitude, where we were filming, over to Park City and over to Midway and Heber. And that's the road that you see up there, and there's also a road that goes down through the trees, and we're not going to go that route today. So also with the engine braking, I'm not using the brakes coming down the hill. If I stick it in second gear, it just runs really, really nicely all on its own. On my bike, I've got to wind the engine fairly tight to produce enough engine braking because the bike's extra 200 pounds. But this thing, and I tell you, a lot of people complain about shaft drive and the slop in the system, that sort of thing. This is really good. It's very well damped. My bike has a much more distinct kind of clunk when you go from on throttle to off throttle. This is really well damped. I don't feel that clunk at all. And this is a much harder engine to work with because it's only 2 cylinders. There's a lot of displacement. And just 2 cylinders, so that's going to make the pieces bigger, and that's just going to make it harder to do. But I'm really impressed. Now, this does have different ride modes. I've got it in road. If you put it in dynamic mode, a couple things happen. This bike has the dynamic electronic suspension adjustment, and so it firms the shocks up. I don't know what the number is, but it feels like 10 or 15%. It's a significant amount. Also sharpens the throttle response. Now this already has just a 90-degree throttle on it, so you only have to turn the throttle 90 degrees to get it wide open. So it's already pretty slick. If I go to the dynamic mode, I'm not sure if I would do that unless I was on a much straighter stretch of road, something this tight. You know, I don't need that kind of jerkiness when I'm riding. Nice little burble on the overrun. Dun, 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 dun. I remember what it's like to be 12. It's pretty fun. With the throttle response adjustability, there's also a rain mode. Drops the power, really softens the throttle response. And then dynamic. So road is where you spend most of your time. Dynamic, if you're really hammering on a windy road, I would love to take this to the track. I think that'd be great fun. But you can really set it up the way you want. You know, are you alone? Is there two of you? With the electronic suspension adjustment, you also get electronic preload adjustment. And that means I can set the bike up for two people, and that changes the way the suspension works, changes the damping and all that stuff. So there's a single rider with luggage, and then two up, and figure with full luggage and touring. But it physically raises and lowers the rear end of the bike. So I tend to run mine in 2-up mode just because it gives me that little extra bit of ground clearance, but I've got that figured out. And this thing is so light, it wouldn't matter. You could take a wheel off of it probably and still get up to the center stand. It just doesn't weigh that much. But the thing that I like about BMW is that, I mean, people ride these. They ride them a lot. This bike has 33,000 miles on it, and you cannot tell it's not new. I had the trip odometer set on something else, and when I flipped it over to 33,000 miles, almost 34, it's like, holy cow. I mean, you literally can't tell it's been ridden. There's no rattles, there's no slop, there's no, you know, kind of softness coming in the suspension. And you put 30,000 miles on a Japanese bike, you know, and the suspension's just done. The owner of this bike is Chris, who also owns the FZ07 that I did a review on, probably a year or so ago, maybe 2 now. But that's her bike, and that bike had dog squeeze suspension when it was new. I mean, the stock shocks were awful, right on the showroom floor. You know, she put 15,000 miles on that, and it was just awful. So, you know, this thing with 34,000 miles and essentially zero suspension wear, that's pretty impressive. But let's talk about money for a minute. This is a 2016. This style came out 2015. If you go back to the 14s and back, it's a different engine. It's not water cooled. It's oil and air cooled, but it's not water cooled. No antifreeze in it. But these bikes, depending on miles and options, you get these bikes for 10-12 grand without a lot of trouble. So let's look at what you can buy for 10 to 12 grand. I mean, you could save a little bit of money and do a Honda, you know, CBR 650R or whatever that one is. You could do a Yamaha FZ07, which is what Chris has. That's why she did that. Those bikes are going to be less expensive. They don't have anywhere near this kind of power. They don't have the sophistication, they don't have the electronics, they don't have traction control and wheelie control and rain mode and all that stuff. And anytime you buy a new motorcycle or any new vehicle, you're going to lose money. It's just the way it is. So let's say you spend $12,000 on a new bike of your choice. You could run up to an MT-09, which is 900 cc's. Now you're getting closer to this in terms of size. They're 117 horsepower, weigh a little less. I think they may have cruise control, but again, no adjustable suspension. The shocks are going to be garbage, and that bike's going to depreciate to, you know, half its value in the next 4 or 5 years. This is a $20-some thousand motorcycle. It's already dropped to half of that. The depreciation curve on this is going to be a lot less, and with a 2-cylinder engine with a parallel twin, maintenance on these is a breeze. I don't care whether you're paying for the maintenance or if you're doing it yourself. If it takes less time, it costs less. That's just the way it is. One of the reasons my bike is so utterly expensive to take to the dealer is that you got to spend an hour taking the Tupperware off. You know, there's all this crap, and you know, literally 50 screws, and you got somebody to put the body panels and all this garbage. And then to change the plugs or the coils, you got to take the radiator out, and that's a whole nother mess. And there's wiring. It's a ton of time, and that is going to cost you when you're spending shop rate hours that are approaching $150. This thing, literally, you take 2 or 3 bolts off, and the valve adjustment and the spark plugs are right there. They're right there. I mean, you could do a spark plug change in this bike in an hour if you didn't know what you're doing and you had to go find your tools. That's really compelling. This bike also has a center stand as standard equipment. So now all of a sudden, it's easy to change your tires. You can change your fronts, you can change your backs, because you can use a floor jack to jack the front end up if you're going to do a front tire or brakes, for instance. On my K1600 GT, watch the video, rear brakes on my bike, the pads were $7. $7. The fronts, I think, were 12 or 13. You get a little bit of a break for buying 2 sets. $13 for rotors. And I rode them 40,000 miles. I mean, it wasn't like they were garbage and they just burned up like they were paper. They were decent pads. $13. Takes, you know, again, 5 minutes if you know what you're doing to change the brake pads. So now all of a sudden you're looking at a bike where if I've got a parallel twin like the 650R or, you know, the MT-07 or the 3-cylinder and the MT-09, you're back to water cooled. You got to take the radiator out. There's plastic take off. All of a sudden, your Yamaha is as expensive to maintain as the BMW is, and you get none of the rest of it. But what you really, really are buying a bike like this for is the way it rides. And let's say you look at a 650R or a MT-07, FC-07. Those make 87 horsepower, maybe, you know, maybe 50 pound-feet of torque at 7,000 or 8,000 RPM. I think the 650, the CBR 650R, makes 49 pound-feet at 8,000 or 8,700 RPM. This is making 80 pound-feet at the flywheel, probably putting 70 to the ground at 2,000 RPM. That's a big, big difference in the way the bike rides. You've got power everywhere. It's instantaneous. You just roll the throttle and it just flies. That's a big difference. You know, if you wanted to learn how to ride on this bike, put it in rain mode, probably knocks 30 or so horsepower out of it, maybe more. Put it in rain mode, it softens the throttle response up, it's light, it's easy to maneuver. Then as you get better, then you've got 2 modes to go, right? By not paying for the depreciation on a brand new anything, you're always going to be better off with something used, and now you've got lots of money left over for maintenance. So if it were me, that's what I'd do. Of course, the other advantage of this is that if you put saddlebags on it, and you can put the factory bags off of my K1600 GT onto this bike, you put hard bags on it and a detachable windshield, you got a touring bike. Now, my leg is at a pretty good angle. I sit significantly higher. I'm sorry, my feet are significantly higher on this bike than they are on mine because it's a smaller bike. For me, that would get old, but I'm 6'4". You know, if you're, like Chris, she's 5'8" maybe. Fits her really well. You know, if you're not a super tall guy, man, give something like this a chance. It is just crazy. Now, the new ones are 1250s, so they're 137 horsepower, but they're also 20 grand probably by the time you get all the stuff on them. If you want to go that route, you can. But our channel is all about the value, the deal, the looking for that diamond in the rough, and by gosh, this is definitely one of them. you can go back to 2009, 10, 11. Those are the old air-cooled ones. Those are $6,500. It's an awful lot of motorcycle for $6,500 because it's always going to be worth $6,500. And miles on this don't matter. Let's go back to those two Japanese bikes. You buy an FZ07 or FZ09 and you put 50,000 miles on it. It's going to be hard to sell. Just because people are going to go, oh, yeah, it's a Japanese motorcycle, 50,000 miles, that's forever. And it's like a 50,000 mile Ferrari. Nobody wants it. It doesn't matter whether it's a good motorcycle or not. It's hard to sell because it has no value, right? Nobody wants to write a check for it. You know, these things, because they go literally hundreds of thousands of miles, you put 50, 60,000 miles on this. First of all, you still got a really good bike, but secondly, it's pretty easy to resell because BMW people are not afraid of those miles because that's kind of what they were designed for. And if you think about it, this is here in the US where you're really only going 80 miles an hour. I mean, 80, 90, here out in the West. There are stretches where the speed limit's 80. I think Texas may be 85. You can run 90 without a lot of trouble. In Europe, these are going to run 120, 130, 140 miles an hour on the Autobahn, right? You kind of get the guts run out of it. It's a very different world in Europe. And this thing is designed to go maximum RPM across the continent, as fast as you want it to go, over and over and over and over. And over 50 or 60 or 70, or in this case 100 years of development, those little differences add up. So, okay, we're just about ready to get on the interstate. So I put it in dynamic mode. Okay, just that little quarter throttle. The exhaust note has changed. It's significantly quicker throttle response. Holy cow, that was really nice. Get the little blurps in the pipe. That's kind of fun. Yep. Dynamic's fun. The wind pressure is taking the weight off my wrists. That air pressure on my chest is kind of holding my body up. So I don't have to hang on to the bars. I'm not grabbing on like you'd have to in a Harley, trying to go 85 miles an hour. Tell you what, it's not bad. One thing about a completely unfair bike is that the wind is a lot smoother. You don't have the turbulence and the buffeting that you get with most bikes with windshields. And it's nice. It's really windy today. Of course, all these SUVs and stuff are just churning the hell out of the air. I'm hoping once we get down towards the valley that I'll be able to get around some of the stuff and we'll have some smooth air to test out. Alright, let's go down a couple of gears. Down to 130. Nice. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to beat the rain home. This Ford doesn't help. There we go. It doesn't look like we're going to have that much fun, and I really am just going to try to beat this rain. So, well, it looks like I made it. There's that rainstorm right there. But this is our exit, so I think we are going to be okay. Okay, let's go just through some basic properties of the bike. First of all, this thing hauls. Okay, so we are on Darwin in the K1600 GT. We are headed home, so let's talk about the differences. Man, I tell you what, it doesn't take you very long to get used to a new motorcycle, and coming back onto this, I mean, this is just a beast. I mean, I don't want to call it a pig because it actually handles really well, but holy cow, 200 pounds difference, and the weight being higher up really makes a difference. I just about dropped my own bike backing out of her garage. I was using reverse and, you know, ran over a pine cone, and it just about knocked me over. You know, on her bike that wouldn't even have been a consideration. So it's definitely more fun. The other thing is, because it's a couple hundred pounds lighter, the natural suspension setting is quite a bit stiffer than this. Now, I can put this in dynamic mode and kind of firm it up, but this is, I mean, this is an M5 as opposed to an M3. I mean, that really is what the difference is. You know, the M5 is much smoother and much quieter and much softer. Still goes like steak when you ask it to, but man, does that R1200 R light your fire. I mean, I thought I had trouble keeping my license with this thing. If I had that to kick around on a daily basis, it'd probably be bad. All right, everyone, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, please share, please subscribe. We'll have more videos out soon.